Welcome back for another episode of Meet at the Tavern. We're going to do something different this week. We're going to start off with an opening statement. So, Jack, you want to go first?
All right, folks, we're going to start off at a run today. So I hope you already have your drink.
I've got mine.
I got mine. Let's boogie.
Let's do it.
Okay, so what's happening? So it's very sad to us. So remember back, there was an influx of illegal immigrants under President Trump. And rightfully, we had full press coverage over the problem. The ACLU, they sued to make sure that the press had full access. And then we had some Congress folks going down there, and we had a representative from New York, AOC. She was down there crying, saying how the illegal immigrants were drinking out of toilets. So, just wondering now, where's the outrage? You know, we heard one whisper from AOC, and she was saying how it's not an invasion. And again, we go back to our wonderful sayings. This is a white supremacist action that people are complaining about at this time. So why was it when it was the last White House, people were drinking out of toilets, and she's crying alligator tears, and today it's not an invasion, it's white supremacy at its greatest. So I want to know, is the suffering of these people coming across our border not so great today as it was in years past? Because according to AOC, them being crammed into a building that, if you have COVID, should only have 250 people in there, and now they have 4,300. We have the government telling us last week, or a week and a half ago, over all the news agencies, fear not, folks, the border is not open. There's no problem there, nothing to see here, folks, keep moving. To this week, they're telling us that they're opening up military bases that can house thousands of illegal immigrants for our wonderful, terrific military to care for now. And
they're expecting over 1 million immigrants to come in this country this year.
So, and they're guessing, again, our experts, that's what they do is guess, I don't know.
They're good
that
at
there's
it.
a 10% COVID spread with these illegal immigrants. So another sacrifice for our men in the service, men and women, that they have to now babysit, watch, filtrate through all these illegal immigrants coming through with COVID at a 10% rate. But according to our wonderful representatives, it's all about white supremacy. No problem here, unlike the last time, which I don't know what the difference is. It was just as bad when Trump was there, but yet for some reason, they're not suffering this time. They're crammed in there, head to foot, tip to tail, no room, one small TV, but there's no problem there.
Yeah, I find it funny how it was an outrage before, and everybody's pretty silent this time around. But I'd like to say, Jack and I appreciate everything, all the listening you guys do with our podcast. But tell as many people as you can. We need more people. Like I said, our podcast is Meet at the Tavern. Jack came up with that name, and it stuck, and it sounds good. Hey, but we're also on Facebook, United States Constitutional Group. Please share our group with everyone you can. Like I said, the more people we have, the better opportunity we have to change the way we look at politics. You can also become a member and help us with our grassroots effort. It's only $30 a year, folks. A lot of these companies want hundreds and hundreds of dollars. We're asking for like $30 a year to become a member. Because it takes money and people to build something great, and with you we can do that. But half of the money that we raise stays right in the state you become a member of. I mean, we use it to host candidate nights and building our membership. So everything goes back. And so we also have an online merchandise store. So show your support, buy some shirts or other items. I have a sweatshirt on right now, and they did a really good job. And again, we appreciate everyone's support. Last week we talked about term limits, and Senator Cruz has sponsored legislation on term limits. It's SJR in the Senate. He has 6 co-sponsors. And in the House, it's HJR. And he has 12 sponsored people. The congressman is Congressman Norman. He sponsored it. He has 31 co-sponsors and 44 people on board. But you need to call or email your congressional members and tell them to support this bill. I mean, I need to see if Lindsey Graham or Tom Rice are on board with this. Jack?
Yeah, I saw a young gentleman on the news the other day. He's from New Jersey, and he's running for Patterson District, NJ-9. His name is Billy Prempeh. I'm going to spell his last name in case I'm mispronouncing it. It's Prempeh. And the first thing he said on the news was he wants to get term limits. He wants term limits. That's the number one goal, term limits. And he's running against a 40-year veteran hack. So, listeners in New Jersey, please look this guy up, vet him, listen to what he has to say, evaluate him. The first thing, this was maybe a 3 to 5 minute conversation he had on the news. It was Newsmax he was on, and that was the first thing he had said, was he wants to get term limits through, and he understands that a guy shouldn't be in Congress for 40 years.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. And we talked about that a lot last week, these career hacks.
That's 20 elections this guy went through. So how hard is he working to get reelected every 2 years? He had to go through 20 elections over the last 40 years. I was 12 years old when that guy got into Congress.
Yeah, he don't worry about, the constituents. He just worries about the special interest so he can get back into office by all the money he raises by catering to those people.
We'll explain later. Very, very... you'll see why these representatives and senators do not come back to your state.
Right. And we have a gentleman there who wants to stand up and tell these politicians that he's had enough. Like you said, 82% of people want term limits. 82%. And yet we still don't have them. But this man wants term limits.
Get him in office.
Vet him, talk to him, get him in office. We've heard from all these politicians, like we talked about it before, deceit and lies. And Jack says that they're hacks. The hypocrisy we hear every day is getting to be way too much. They lie straight to our faces and don't care. So when are we going to stand up and say enough is enough?
They're allowed to lie to your face because the press doesn't do their job. Their job should be to fact check these people and go back at them. There should be debates at every press conference. These people have a microphone in front of their face. Everything they say should be factual, and if it's not, it should be pointed out.
They need to ask tough questions, and for some reason, they don't. And again, it's going towards socialism again.
Yeah, well, after they ask the tough questions, what they have to do is demand a tough answer.
Yeah, that's true. They don't do that, But for the lies and deceit, just want to give a couple examples. Governor Cuomo in New York, he has nine people have accused him of inappropriate behavior and sexual harassment. 9 people. And the state legislature is taking their time to impeach him. He lied not only to the people of New York about the nursing home deaths, but to the American people. He wrote a book and asked for $4 million in advance. And he lied to our faces. Straight-faced lied.
So now does he get to keep that money? Does he get to keep that $4 million after a book of falsehoods that were... He did not title that book under fiction. He proudly stood by that book as a factual enterprise that this is what he has done. So remember, California and New York, it looks like there's going to be a great opportunity for you guys to get new executives. Now is the time to start finding a representative to be the executive of your state. Start looking for that representative now. Find them, vet them, get them interested. If they're not interested, interest them.
Yeah, find someone to run those states that care about the people. because the ones we have in office now don't. They don't care about us. I mean, look at during the early days of COVID, he gave special treatment to family, friends, and political cronies, while the rest of New Yorkers were wondering what to do and where to go. They sent a state doctor to the home of his brother several times. Several times. And that's not special treatment?
Who paid for it?
Yeah, we did. People in New York. You know? The New Yorkers put their full faith in him, and he's failed them.
What generation in your family had a doctor come to their house?
I don't remember. My great-great-great-grandfather?
I think my mother and father were around when they still had doctors come to your house. This man gets a doctor not to come to his house, but his family's house.
You know, they're not coming to your house. They're not coming to my house. You know, the legislature and the attorney general are dragging their feet to prolong this as long as possible so you can forget about it.
His brother has coverage too.
Right.
So he got a doctor's visit in his house on a tax dollar bill when he has coverage, works for a powerful company, and yet he still gets the special treatment.
Yeah, I don't get that. You know? I mean, they want you to forget about it. That's why they're taking so long. The longer they drag this, it'll go back to the back of your heads, and we'll forget about it, and he'll still be there. That's why they're taking their time. If it was a Republican in office, he would have been impeached months ago. You know, Cuomo is a tyrant, just like our congressional representatives. We hear about ethics and integrity all the time from our elected representatives. I mean, especially in the police community, because it's very important. I mean, why is it that politicians want to hold us, the public, accountable, but not themselves? Not themselves, Jack.
It's called term limits. And like you said last podcast, if these guys had to live by the laws that they allow to just willy-nilly go down, especially through bureaucracies, those bureaucracies would not be so powerful anymore.
Right. So what is wrong with this country? Where did we go wrong? I mean, it used to be that we could find common ground. But everybody's at each other's throats nowadays. It's sad.
We fell asleep at the switch.
Yeah, I agree.
And, you know, we have quite a bit of material. I don't know if we're going to get into this podcast, but it was the beginning of progressivism in this country. Started in 1890 and took full foliage and grew its wings under President Theodore Roosevelt. We will get into that either this podcast or the next podcast, but now it is just rampant.
Yeah. So the people in New York need to call their legislative members and demand they work faster and get rid of this guy because he's bringing New York down. I mean, it shouldn't be different when it comes to Democrats and Republicans. Everybody should be applied under the same rule.
Yeah, that's an important statement right there from Dennis, because this group isn't to tell you about Republicans or Democrats. This group is to tell you about accountability. And a lot of times it sounds like we're right-sided on this as far as political view. But the conservative side of this country is not so pro-Constitution either, no more. And we had a listener, we're having a few emails back and forth, and we're going to explain to them also, this group is not here to tell you to pick sides. If you support President Biden, he is our president, that's fine. If you don't, that's fine also. But everybody in this country should be holding these people accountable. That should be our new catchphrase, is accountability. They are passing a $3 trillion bill to redo our roads and bridges, and what he said on news, President Biden, only came out to $525 billion. So where is the other $2.5 trillion?
They're cronies.
Dollars going.
They're cronies.
Is this how they become millionaires? Because everything is so convoluted and confusing, they themselves can't even figure out what these bills mean with all this money. This is going to take decades to do. No jobs are ready for this program. And we can only account for $525 billion of the $3 trillion that they want to pass.
You know, hey, I don't dislike Democrats. I don't dislike Republicans. I don't dislike liberals or conservatives. You know who I dislike? Politicians. You know what? We need to bring integrity and ethics back to our leaders because they don't have none. None.
Yeah, we were talking about two Democrats last program with West Virginia and I believe it was Arizona. Going, they're trying to stand their ground on this filibuster. So
yeah, Manchin and Semina.
Yeah, us as a country have to stand behind these two people. Do not let them feel this heat on their own. Right now, West Virginia wants to use that money that they got from the COVID to cut taxes, and their federal government saying, no, you cannot. That's the first flame on the burner to West Virginia. That's a shot over the bow. You cannot do what we're telling you, what the money we're giving you, you can't do what you want with it because this man is standing in our way, Manchin.
Right. So, for all you folks living in New York, if you don't know who your assemblymen or senators are, it's on our website, uscgnational2021.godaddysite.com. Like I said, email them, call them. I mean, get this thing going. Get someone new in there with better ideas. But I don't know if you heard about this one, but the Democrats were contesting the congressional seat in Iowa. Democrat Rita Hart is asking Congress to overturn her opponent, Republican Mariannette Miller Meeks' congressional election win. 6 votes separate them each, but Hart has claimed that 22 votes were not counted.
Well, we're going to go over something on that when we go over Article 1, Section 6. It's a huge eye-opener. So when we go over Article 1, Section 6 of the Constitution, I'll refer back to this. This is a big deal.
You know, the reason she said she was going to the Congress and not through the courts is because she knew she would lose in the courts, but figured Congress would overturn the election because they were in the majority. What kind of crap is that?
And they can.
That's ridiculous.
They can absolutely do it.
You know, there's no doubt that this election was close. You know, however, the election was already certified with the Republican as the victor. So why would you even, go to court? You know, what aggravates me, and people argue on both sides, it's different from the presidential election. You know, election is election, folks. You know, why is it that when Republicans try and contest an election, they're called un-American and unconstitutional? But when Democrats try and do it, it's okay. It's a fair election process.
They're racist too.
Right. Just let me give you a few examples of this hypocrisy. Since 2001, Democrats on 3 separate occasions have contested the elections. 2001, Bush Gore, and Bush won. In 2005, a Republican and a Democrat contested the Bush election. And in 2017, Democrats again contested the Trump election. But in 2020, it's crazy. I don't know what the answer is, Jack.
Well, the answer is Bush was smart to go to the courts instead of the Congress. He went to courts first instead of Congress and the courts had him win. When we go over Section 6 in Article 1, you'll see why he didn't go to Congress and how horrible that rule is.
You know, contesting the election is not the issue. Hey, it's your right under the law to contest the election if you feel you were wronged. And you should. You know, I believe every vote should count, and I'm sure you do too. But you can't tell people it's un-American or unconstitutional to contest an election, then down the road contest an election.
Yeah, well,
can you see the hypocrisy?
Well, because, I don't think they think of it as a hypocrisy. They think of it as we don't know and we don't remember. The American people don't know. Do this. The American people, they don't remember 2001,
Yeah, they'll
2017. Forget it.
Everything's on the internet, folks.
We're like a bunch of buffoons.
Everything's on the internet. You can go back and look up everything they said. You know, the thing is, we need to wake up before it's too late. Before we go to socialism. Before we lose our country. You know, we can't let these people get away with treating us like we're second-class citizens. We're not. We're not a third world country. We're the United States of America, the greatest country around.
Yeah, it shows how great this country is because with all the problems we have right now, look at the south border. People are still trying to get in this country because The opportunity here is great. If we can keep to the Constitution and keep the government of a republic, they know as immigrants they can come here and live the American dream.
Right.
They're not leaving their country to come here to a socialist country.
You know, we need to vote them out. All these people. We need to start. We need a reset. That's what I feel. We need a reset.
Right. It's a reset through the election, and thank God our founding fathers were smart enough to figure this out before it happened, because we can have a reset without a revolution. All we need to do is educate ourselves, take an interest ourselves, and elect these people out.
Right. Right. So I saw yesterday the Democrat finally dropped the case. So the Republican is now seated as a congressional member, which is good.
Did something happen in New York? They had a very tight congressional race also, and I don't know if it had panned out the right way or not.
Yeah, that was upstate New York. They were like 12 votes separating them. I don't know which way that. We have to look into that one. I'm not sure.
Yeah, we'll have to look into that one.
Yeah, but the next is Georgia. They have enacted a new law called the Election Integrity Act of 2021. Democrats are having a hissy fit over this one, and I don't see how anyone can be arguing about it. I'm going to put it up on our website when I get my internet back.
Yeah, we're doing things a little different today, folks. So when you hear my pages flipping around, I didn't drink too much. I'm just trying to keep up with the program without the computer.
Yeah, they're building new houses in the back of my development, so they cut the line again.
It's a shoestring budget, folks. It's a shoestring budget.
So we'll get it up there in the next couple days. But it creates a voter ID for absentee ballots to provide a driver's license or state ID number. Doesn't require any more signature verification. And if you don't have a driver's license, the state will give you a state ID number for free. For free. How does that violate anyone's right to vote? I think it makes it easier, in my view. I mean, there are now one ballot drop box in every county for early voting. Plus, it expands early voting on weekends when most people are off from work.
That's important. That deterrent for, people don't have time sometimes to vote Monday through Friday.
You're right. You know, I'm a strong advocate for that. I mean, having an election on a Tuesday, I've always felt was wrong because people need to make a living.
Well, I get it. You have to make a day. You have to draw the line in the sand, and you have to vote.
I mean, I know that employers are required to give employees time off to vote, but most of us don't take advantage of it. We feel obligated to work.
Well,
You know?
once you learn the work ethic, you're in trouble already.
Yeah, so weekend voting is great. I mean, there's already lawsuits to overturn this law.
Well, they're crying about, apparently in the last election, people were handing out water at the election polls with names of candidates.
Can't do that.
You know, federal law says you cannot campaign within 150 feet of the front of the entrance of any voting place. You know, and now I do not understand, and if anybody out there can explain it to me, please email us the problem with ID. So, if you don't have an ID, guess what you can't do? You can't drive, you can't get a prescription from CVS or Walgreens, can't get a phone, can't get a library card, can't rent a car, can't rent a room from a hotel, can't get married, can't buy alcohol, can't get electric turned on, can't get cable turned on, can't get water turned on. So what are you doing? Are you living in a cave?
That's right. Thing is, you need an ID for everything.
How is this racist?
How is that racist? How is that voter suppression? But for some reason, don't worry about voting. You have to sit back and think again. Why? Why do they want that? You know. But some key takeaways in the Georgia law that I've seen: establishing 3 days of in-person early voting, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday before the election. Making an online portal through which what they want, which people want. We're giving it to them. Letting counties offer vote centers where residents from any precinct can cast their vote. Secure drop boxes for absentee ballots. Counties to gradually phase out electronic-only voting and switch to equipment that can process paper ballots. and letting state officials quickly remove someone from the voter rolls if they're notified that person has moved and is registered to vote in another state. What is so wrong with all that? And what Biden said, I saw he was like going out to a press conference or something, and he said, you can't give water out to people, like Jack said. That's false. Poll workers can walk down the line and give water to anybody they want, anybody that needs it. You just can't say, here's a water, vote for Republican so-and-so. Here's a water, vote for Democrat so-and-so.
Or I'm not giving you this water.
Right. It's just, that's what it says. It's already laws on the books. And again, they're trying to manipulate it to fit their line of thinking.
So honestly, please, if you have a discrepancy on having ID to go vote, you have to explain it to me, because I'm ignorant and I don't understand why to go vote there's an ID check. I don't understand why. I don't understand the quarrel on that. I mean, this should be, voting 101. Who are you? I'm so-and-so.
Where do you live?
I live here. How do we know? Because it's me? No, it's not because it's me. It's because here it is. The state recognizes me as so-and-so at this address.
Right. We have to ask ourselves why. Why is that? Why that is?
You can't file your taxes without ID.
That's right.
You can't get your tax return without ID.
I mean,
you can't cash that check without ID.
This has to send up red flags to people. If it doesn't, there's something wrong with that person. I mean, I'm not the brightest guy around, but this sends up red flags in me.
Well, you know what? Maybe if somebody understands why this is a problem, let us know. Let us know, and we will put it on the program. Like we said, we had a listener, and they believe that this $3 trillion is absolutely 100% wholesome. And we're going to respond to that person and explain to them our math figures out $525 billion, exactly what was said. So with these people, now they're people. They're not angels. They don't walk on water. Where is, this is a lot of money. Where is the other $2.5 trillion?
Right. Where is it? These politicians don't do anything unless it benefits them. You know that. We've seen it every day. I mean, don't drink their Kool-Aid, people. It's sour. Their Kool-Aid is sour.
Not for them.
Yeah, it's nuts. I don't know. We need to hear from people out there in all different parts of the country, because these issues aren't just South Carolina, or they're not just New York. They're not just Georgia. They're all over the country. I mean, so let us know what's happening where you live. I mean,
yeah, if you see we're off base, let us know.
Yeah, we'll correct ourselves.
We'll correct ourselves. We'll explain why we see it that way.
We're two average guys just got fed up with politics.
Yeah, we don't know a lot. We don't know what we don't know, and
but we do know one thing: we're tired of politicians
stealing.
Republicans and Democrats. We demand accountability. We demand term limits.
They all leave office as a 1%er.
You got that right. I said last week about a Texas legislator who's supposed to be proposing a bill to finish the border wall.
Right.
Still haven't heard back from him. Still. I mean, maybe it was all talk, and he wasn't going to try and make it a reality. Again, these people play into our emotions and will say anything if they feel help them get them reelected or elected. They play into our emotions, and they do it well.
Well, that's what happens. When you rule by emotion, you bring everybody along with you.
Right.
So keep your emotions, when you're listening to this podcast and these programs, leave your emotions out. Just think about what we're saying and try and comprehend what we're saying, and then prove us wrong. Show us where we're wrong, because that is good. If you show us that we're off base somewhere, let us know. Let us know so we can look. Again, it's just the two of us. Just got my sister Margaret. She's going to take care of the Facebook.
Thank you, Margaret.
And my brother Tommy and my brother Mike, my son Jack, These are the people we have that are helping, and
And we got Stacy. Stacy's our secretary.
yes, and we got Phil and Paul. They're in charge of events and fundraising, but you know,
Hopefully soon we'll be having a golf tournament here, so everybody can get out and enjoy the day.
but if we're off base somewhere,
Let us know.
yeah, we don't get mad. We go.
We can
"Ooh."
debate. We're adults. You won't hurt our feelings.
Not at all. You'll actually help us. We'll understand better,
Yeah, we want to get better.
and we will we will correct that.
You know, I also told you that I emailed Tom Rice, our congressional legislator down here, about the $86 million deal that Biden was going to give hotels to house migrants.
Yeah, I think Tom Rice is a representative from South Carolina, and all his email goes to spam.
Yeah, I still haven't heard back from him. So I looked up Tom Rice, see what kind of legislation he sponsored, and I came up with 7 things he sponsored.
How long has he been in office?
I'm not sure about that one. I don't know.
We'll have to look into that because that's a big deal.
Yeah, but a couple of them to provide a tax credit for certain expenses associated with protecting employees from COVID-19. I thought the stimulus was going to take care of that. Might be wrong. To extend federal recognition to the PD Indian tribe of McCall, South Carolina. To extend federal recognition to the Waccamaw Indian people of Conway, and for other purposes. To provide certain coverage of audiologist services under the Medicare program. Excuse me.
Hold on a minute. I don't mean to be a jerk, but those two before that, are they taxpayers?
I thought they were. Let me look back here.
See, Waccamaw Indian people of Conway, South Carolina.
Yep. Nope.
Okay, so he passed a bill for non-taxpayers.
Yep.
Okay, 2 of them.
2 of them.
Okay.
Let me see here. This is a good one. To improve the National Instant Criminal Background Check System in order to search the national database exchange when conducting criminal background checks. I agree with that one. To rename our United States Postal Service in Georgetown, South Carolina. Hey, no doubt these bills are important to the people of that he sponsored those bills for. But you know what I don't see, Jack?
What's that?
Doesn't sponsor term limits. Doesn't sponsor term limits. I don't even know if he's a sponsor on the term limit that we mentioned earlier in the podcast.
Well, we're going to have to look into that. And today's date that we're recording this is April 2nd. And if he is not sponsoring that bill before April 2nd, maybe he doesn't realize that people in South Carolina are looking to vote him out.
You know, when we educate ourselves, become more knowledgeable, we can make better decisions, not just for voting, but for everything we do.
Well, you know, Dennis, you've been saying this since you started. Knowledge is power. And that's what it is.
You know, this week we're going to stay in Article 1, but we're going to go over Sections 4, 5, and 6. Again, download the Constitution from our website, USCG National 2021. We're on GoDaddy sites. You know, that's why we put all the information on there for you guys. It's an educational tool. So take a look at it. You know, pause this podcast, go download it. If you didn't catch last week's podcast, I mean, great information. We broke down Articles 1, 2, and 3. And again, we're always looking to make our podcast better and more user-friendly. And like Jack said, we've never done this before, so it's a learning experience for both of us. But with your help, together, we'll build something good, and we'll have a stronger voice. I mean, individually, we can't accomplish a lot, but together, we can accomplish a lot of things. So, let's get into Section 4 of Article 1, which explains that the states have the power to determine where, when, and how elections will be held for senators and representatives. This section also states that Congress must meet at least once a year, and this meeting must be on the first Monday in December. And
That was changed. That was an amendment. It was changed to January.
So the times, place, and manners of holding elections for senators and representatives shall be prescribed in each state by the legislator thereof, but the Congress may at times by law make or alter such regulations, except as to the places of choosing senators. The Congress shall assemble at least once in every year, and that is, like Jack said, January. So that brings me back to H.R. 1 for the People Act of 2021, the new voting act that Congress wants passed. Again, that's on our website. They want to amend all election laws. This is a bad bill that needs to be voted no on. Again, contact your representatives and tell them this is not good. We don't want this. The whole bill is confusing, trying to jam everything down our throats at the same time. I agree that we need to make elections more secure and make good changes that benefit all of us. But then again, 16-year-olds, they don't need to vote.
No. Well, I look into these things along with Dennis, and I have found a spot. It's called Interactive Constitution. So I'm going to try and break down these sections. Now, you got to understand that our founding fathers never minced words, and these long paraphrases that I say, they were able to get into in short paragraphs, but that's because they didn't mince words and they didn't confuse them.
Not like our people today.
Right. So, Section 4 is considered the election clause, and it's a primary source of the Constitution's authority to regulate elections in the U.S. House of Representatives and now the U.S. Senate, because that was changed in Amendment 17 now also, because your senator is not elected through state legislatures. They're elected through popular vote, which brings them right back to Washington, D.C. And the clause, it directs and empowers states to determine the time, place, or manner of congressional elections, subject to Congress's authority to make or alter state regulations. So right there in the first section, Congress has veto, so to speak, for a lesser term, over the state. So whenever a state enacts a law relating to a congressional election and now also a Senate, it's exercising power under the election clause. And my research shows that the states do not have any inherent authority to enact such measures because Congress can come back and overthrow it.
So Section 5.
Well, I got one more
Got
thing.
one more?
Yeah. Although the election clause makes states primarily responsible for regulating congressional elections, it vests the ultimate power in Congress. Congress may pass federal laws regulating congressional elections and now Senate elections that override the state law. And but the only saving factor he has is that fundamentally neither one of the states or the federal government can pass a law that violates other constitutional provisions.
We've like I said, we put HR 1 up, and it shows you how confusing that the laws they write to make us. If you don't have a law degree, you're so confused, and it's crazy. But Section 5 of Article 1 talks about how the procedure should be for each House of Congress. It includes the qualifications of members, the rules they must follow, how to keep records for what happens, and how a House can adjourn.
And again, this gives Congress the power to govern itself. And that was because of the Civil War. And the Senate was disputing about sitting senators from Confederate states. So that's a big topic right there that we'll have to go through on that day. Today, it's used when a challenge to a state declared winner. So if they lose, they can petition to the House they were running for. So if they were running for a representative, and they can decide, they can decide the outcome. So if you're running for, like what we were saying that one in Iowa, if they had gone to the House of Representatives, the representatives could have decided who won that election. And here's the kicker. They are immune from judicial review.
Right.
So if Nancy Pelosi had taken the side of that Democrat that felt that she didn't have 22 votes counted, and she put it to a vote and said, that's it. she's going to be the representative. That Republican representative could not have taken that to court. That's why Bush was smart to go to the courts first, not to Congress. Senate Rule number 22. It's a rule that establishes the 3/5 rather than a simple majority. We've been going over that for a long time. And the third clause in Section 5 is transparency. So this is the cornerstone of democracy. So what happened here with Iowa, you have to have transparency for it. So it was, apparently Nancy Pelosi decided that these 22 votes were not really there. And she could not win unless it was an uproar totally against the Iowa people. They elected this Republican. There was no 20, in my view, there was no 22 votes that weren't counted. Or otherwise Nancy Pelosi would have used this and it would have been done.
You know, we're for all about fair elections. Again, if you feel you were wrong, go through the court system. Don't try to bypass the court to have the Congress overturn an election. It's not right.
Well, apparently she didn't have that 22 counts.
Right.
She was wrong. There was not 22 votes that weren't counted because Pelosi, again, California, let's start getting some representatives in there that are honest.
See, my thing is the hypocrisy all the time. I mean, it's got to end eventually. I mean,
well, it will
if we get enough people.
The American people listen to this program and join our clubs and start their own clubs and do what they need to do, we'll have a good republic again. And again, if you're against this Constitution and you're against this type of government, let us know why. Give us your reasons. And give us your alternative. What is better than what we have right now? Because if you have something better than this government right now that we have through this Constitution, you have put years of work into it. You have worked years and years and years into this philosophy, this way of thought, and we'd like to know about it.
Right. Hey, we're looking for people that want to start their own Constitution group in their area. You know, we're looking for state chairman. We're looking for county chairman. Just reach out to us on our Facebook or our webpage, and Jack or myself will get back to you.
Sorry, trying to keep my coronavirus to myself.
That's okay. We get it. Section 6 of Article 1 looks at the privileges, restrictions, and compensation.
Very important. Of
anyone who is a senator or a representative. They get paid by the Treasury, and this is a big one for me. They can't be arrested unless it's for a felony, treason, or breach of peace. They can't be arrested to or from going to work or going home from work. They also cannot take an office in the executive government while they're still in Congress. That sums it up. I mean, it's a lot longer than that, but we'll leave it at that.
Well, I got a huge thing on that. This Section 6 is it's humongous. And again, I looked on that website, Interactive Constitution, and Congress gets paid by the Treasury of the United States, not the state that they represent. So this shows that they are an officer of the federal government, not the state they are from. So South Carolina elect all our representatives and all our state senators, but they are officers of the federal government. And that's why they don't come back to the state anymore, because they don't need to. They don't need to come back, and that's why the Amendment number 17 is so important to get back into the states. Also, Congress will not be questioned in court or by the president about any speech or debate that was given in part on the floor of either house, whichever one they are representing. And that was to be put in for freedom of debate. You know, they wanted to make sure that these people weren't afraid of free speech, which we are all afraid of now. And it also says that Congress cannot take an office or a position that they just raised the salary on. So this happened a couple times in history. Nixon tried to get Attorney General I think he was a Senator Sexby, to be the Attorney General. So it just so happened that this guy voted to raise the salary of the Attorney General. So if he was to take that position, he had to take it with the former salary before he voted on it, and they let him do that. Reagan grabbed Senator Hatch to be a Supreme Court, and Supreme Court found that this is unconstitutional. I guess because they all would have had to take a cut in pay, and he wasn't allowed to become a Supreme Court. So they couldn't, so they wouldn't accept the pay. He couldn't take the cut in pay, so he couldn't become a Supreme Court member. And of course, we go back to our old example of politicians of years ago coloring in a coloring book with the picture and going out of the line a little bit. And, let me get back in the line. Well, today, we just scribble all over the page and we don't care what the picture looks like. President Obama was allowed to place Hillary Clinton into the Secretary of State, and she voted to give the Secretary of State a raise in salary.
So she
she
didn't know she was going to get that job.
Right. So she got the salary and the position. As much as it was against the Constitution, she still got it. So, and they also state that you can't be in Congress, whether a senator or a representative, and work in the president's cabinet. And the reason you can't do that is because if you start doing that, it causes this government to turn into a parliamentary government and not a republic. So just in that short paragraph of essays that our founding fathers wrote comes all this information. It's 3/4 of a page. So that's what I'm saying when they don't mince words. So Article 1, Section 6 is really important. It goes through all of this, why they can't take spots in the cabinet, why they can't take spots in places where they raise salaries, and these founding fathers were geniuses.
Yes, they were. Do you know these congressional leaders make $174,000 a year? That's their base salary.
And they all come out as a 1%er.
Yep. And it hasn't changed since 2009, and they don't, believe me, it shouldn't change at all. The Speaker of the House makes $225,000. Minority Leader makes $193,000. They're entitled to federal health benefits and can write off $3,000 in taxes each year for expenses while they're in Washington. They also get allowances to pay their staff and cover office and travel expenses. In the Senate, a senator gets about $3.3 million. By Congress, about just under $1 million. It's under $1 million.
So where do you think this money's going? Let me see. Senator Lindsey Graham and Tim Scott have $3.3 million for their staff, and I don't get a Christmas card.
Do they even have I don't even know if they have a state office.
They do. They have a lot of state offices. I tried to get in touch with all of them, and I never got to speak to a human being yet. I always speak to a voicemail that is full at this time, so they can't take what I want to say. People, to run a staff at $3.3 million on top of your $179,000 a year salary. Folks, at $3.3 million a year, how far does that put that representative, that senator, away from their job? I mean, does this guy even see his desk? Does he know the directions to his office? $3.3 million he's got to pay people to do his job, their job. I shouldn't gender specific. And representatives have almost $1 million. Counting their salary, they're over $1 million to operate this office for 2 years.
But then they want to, under HR 1, they want to get 6 for 1.
Right. And then they come to us and beg us for money to give them a job that they can't do. That needs to be changed. And whatever money they don't use, they call it a war chest. That money stays in that war chest for 10 years. They get to keep it, every nickel of it.
That should go right back to the Treasury. You know what else they get? A retirement. They get a retirement. for serving in Congress it's crazy. You have to serve at least 5 years. You know, to collect their full pension, they must be at least 62 years old, or at least 50 with 20 years of service. How many people out there are in a retirement plan? There's only a few.
They got rid of those retirement plans. It's all in the 401k. And why is it in the 401k? Because they can control what the stock market does and what your pension does. So that tells you how long you're going to stay in the workplace. Because when you look at your 401k and say, I got $150,000 in my 401k, and that's going to last me for the rest of my life. There is no more pension system, folks.
You know, they can get up to 80% in their final salary. When I retired from jail, I was in a retirement plan. 50%. That's all I could get. If I stayed an extra 10 years, I can get maybe 10 more percent. But these folks can get up to 80% of their pension. Why do they get a pension? It should be an honor to serve. They shouldn't get a pension. They shouldn't get any retirement. They're making enough money to where they can save for their own retirement. So again, why most people have to work till they're 62 to only get 50%, they're getting a hell of a lot more than the rest of society. Like I said, if you're lucky to do 20 years, get 50%. I mean, you see a problem here? I do. The system is rigged in favor of elected officials.
Well, we have two classes of people right now. We have the political class and the rest of us.
You know, most of society lives paycheck to paycheck, while these people are making more and more for doing less and less.
You know, we have a book on our recommended reading from Mark Levin. What's it called again?
The Liberty Amendments.
Liberty Amendments. I would like to put an amendment in there for their salary. And how does this sound? I mean, there are a few people that are business folks and they have some money. So how about this? If you have any wealth when you get elected to office, I think that your wealth should be deposited into a bank. And the interest that comes back on that bank is the same percentage that comes out of the stock market. So that way, while you're in office, you're worrying about the stock market and you're worrying about the people. Because if we, the people, do well and the stock market is doing well, you'll do well. You shouldn't be able to invest in laws that you're voting on. That's insider trading, folks. Anybody else in the world does that, they get arrested. But these people, these politicians in the Senate and the representatives and the president, they get to vote and sign off on bills that they're invested in and their family. So they should not be a part of any investments. There should be no blind trusts, nothing like that. They should be in a bank account that receives an interest rate of whatever the interest rate was of that stock market for that year. So if the stock market lost 3%, well then your wealth that you went into office with lost 3%. If it goes up 20%, well then your wealth went up 20%.
You know, let me point out federal health benefits. They get their own federal health benefits. They're not in Obamacare. They're not in any other plan. They're in their own federal health benefit plan. And I can guarantee you it's better than what you and I have. And I mean, I have a pretty good plan.
Listen, Dennis, we are fortunate, all right?
We've been very fortunate.
We are very fortunate in life, and I'm not going to say no. Because, again, at 50% rate of whatever you made is light years further than anybody else. And the reason why we got that was because we had a government job.
That's right.
We had a government job. But years ago, there was a lot of companies that had the same type of pensions. And unions had taken care of them. But I feel that some of them may be a little corrupt, but we'll get that into another day. I can't say certainly. I mean, that's just an assumption, and we try not to assume things on this program. But for the average person to walk away from their career and get 50% of their pay, we are very fortunate, you know. But you had to work for it. I don't feel that these representatives, that these people in Congress, I think their job is the easiest job in the world. They sit behind a big desk. They
Talk to
get
people all day.
3.3 million in one and $900,000 in the other house to spend other people's money,
Go to cocktail parties at night.
right? I mean, you sit there all day and say, how am I going to spend these people's money? And it goes back to what Tucker Carlson said. Why are you collecting taxes anymore if everything you need, you print the money for it anyway?
That's right. Yeah, totally right. Yeah, you're right. They don't deserve a pension. They get everything handed to them every day of their lives. Everything is handed to them. We have to wake up.
We have to try and figure a way, Dennis. You, myself, our listeners, you know these politicians are skimming off of that $3.3 million.
Oh, absolutely.
That 900.
Absolutely.
You know, I watched a program. It was a movie. It was a fictional movie, and it was a mafia movie. And they had said how this the head of the mafia always worried about somebody that brought all the money back that they were supposed to, because they're dealing with criminals, so they know they were going to steal. It was just how much was allowed to be stolen. And if they came back with all their money, that was a red flag to the guy that was in charge of that family, because that must be a cop. That must be an FBI agent, because he came back with all the money. He doesn't know enough to steal off of me. And I know he's going to steal. I think these federal representatives are doing the same. Again, I'm sorry, I don't mean to go down rabbit holes, but we got to look into that, because they all leave as one percenters. Is it through insider trading? Are they skimming off of their yearly budget? $3.3 million? That's a lot of money. $3.3 million. People, you're home right now. Put $3.3 million in your calculator and divide it by 52 and see how much money that is a week.
It's a lot of money. You know, like I said, we don't mean to beat a dead horse, but like I said, these people don't deserve what they get. But then again, we've let them get away with it for so long.
It's our fault. We let them. We left them there. They're there. They've been there. And, you know, again, we're not here to tell you who you should feel comfortable with. We're just here to let you think about things, and maybe you should start looking into them.
Again, we're not, you know, we don't care if you vote Republican. We don't care if you vote Democrat. All we want is accountability. We want accountability for everyone in office. Every single person that is elected in this country needs to be held accountable for their actions.
The biggest way to vote through accountability, too, is remember, do not vote for the lesser of two evils.
Right, we do that a lot. But, Jack, you wanted to get into what a declaration of war covers. Declaration of war is a formal act by which one state goes to war against another. It's a performance speech act by an authorized party of a national government in order to create a state of war between two or more states.
Okay, here's the surprising thing for everybody that's listening, and I hope you pass this on to your friends and family, because the last time there was a declaration of war was June 4th, 1942, against Bulgaria, Hungary, and Romania. Since then, the United States has used armed forces abroad 243 times. So, it's been discovered that our Congress folks in the Senate and the Congress and Representative, they do not want to vote for a declaration of war. They would rather not vote for a declaration of war, even for a popular war that they know that they can win. They just don't want to vote for a declaration of war. So when a president asks for the power of military might, they say you can do it under these circumstances, and they give him what he's allowed to do. So once again, Congress has abdicated their responsibility again. I mean, God almighty, can't these people ever do their job? The military has been broken down, like we said on the last podcast, to both branches, the executive and Congress, so that nobody has full control over it. So Congress decides to skirt their responsibility again and leave it at the president's feet that if this war goes good, it's all for him. If it goes bad, it's all for him. Don't look at me. I shrugged my shoulders. They are cowards. How could you be so cowardly not to care about the interests of this country enough to declare war or not? If it's not, then say it's not. We cannot go to war over something like this. The lives of our soldiers, our men and women that go into the service, is not worth what you want to go there for. I mean, how do you look at yourself in the mirror when you can't do that one thing, vote for a declaration of war, and send somebody else's child someplace else to die alone, away from their family, in the heat of battle? You should be ashamed of yourself. It's ridiculous. You're a coward. You don't deserve the position you have if you cannot take that responsibility on. You'd say you serve the people through Congress, through Senate, or as a representative. You serve yourself, and you are afraid, sucking your thumb. You can't do the right thing for that. 243 times you sent our soldiers into the battlefield, and you didn't have the nerve to say, yeah, this is a declaration. I'm sending the troops there. Godspeed, guys. Come back safe. Come back whole. Shame on you. This is why nobody likes you.
I think when they look in the mirror, they say, mirror, mirror on the wall, I'm the greatest of them all. That's what they actually, I feel it's what they actually think. But the president does not have the power to declare war. Under Article 1, Section 8, Congress has the power to declare war. The president doesn't. And even when a surprise attack by the Japanese at Pearl Harbor, FDR went to the Congress for a declaration of war. He did not simply send American troops into battle against Japanese because he knew he didn't have the authority. The Constitution
out of the
gave him,
lines again.
right. The Constitution gave him no such authority. That's why he went to Congress. You know?
You are so afraid of losing your job that you can't vote for a declaration of war when this country is in trouble because it might not be a good war. Let me tell you something. We may win the war if you stay your nose out of it. If you just vote for the declaration of war and let our generals and the professionals take care of the war, and you go into a war to win, maybe you wouldn't be so scared of losing your job. I mean, you can't vote for a declaration of war because you might lose your seat? These people are going to lose their life, their limbs, their mind. But you don't want to vote for it. You don't want, and you go to sleep at night knowing that there's men and women out there coming back with demons and missing limbs and can never be the same again, but you kept your seat.
You know, since 2001, we've had ongoing war on terrorism, which is a separate entity all in itself. I mean, how do we declare war on people from another country when that country stated they have no idea that this attack was going to happen or had any idea there are people planned in that? I mean, I said this before, I said it last week, we needed to act, and we did. But how do you declare a state of war on a specific segment of society? There's bad people all over the United States, gangs, you name it. I mean, do we declare a state of war on them? I mean, they're doing away with the gang unit in Los Angeles.
Yeah, but they're keeping homicide.
Right.
So if you die, you'll be all right.
I mean, I looked up an article by Richard Jackson called War on Terrorism. It's a term used to describe the American-led global counterterrorism campaign, launched in response to the terrorist attacks of September 11th. The war on terrorism was comparable to the Cold War. It was intended to represent a new phase in global political relations and has had important consequences for society, human rights, international law, cooperation, and governance. One of the laws passed in the war on terror was the Patriot Act and the formation of the Department of Homeland Security. The Patriot Act was signed by George Bush in 2001, expanded the search and surveillance powers of the federal government. But you know what? They didn't leave it there. They still do it now. They're following American citizens. Why? Look what they did with President Trump.
So they don't get voted into president.
Yep, you're right. They look at our telephone communications, electronic informations. They look at everything. You know, it's why. I understand we had a war on terror. Terrorism is really bad, and we need to stay up on it. We need to know when it, we have the best technology. We need to know when something's about to happen. But
Yeah.
why do we get?
But I tell you what, Dennis, when something does happen, let the professionals handle it, not these people. That's why you are declaring war. You are making a declaration of war. Now, once you declare that war, the President of the United States has control of all of the military now, of all of their plans and procedures, whatever they're going to do. I don't know the technical word for it. I said it last podcast. So you're free and clear. Now you can conduct the business of the United States. You declared war, you voted on it, let it go. Now let the people that are supposed to conduct the war conduct it. I mean, if they violate the Geneva Convention, they're in trouble, not you. Stop being a coward. If we need to get rid of terrorism, then declare war on terrorism and let the professionals. Now, if the professionals feel that the CIA has to help them because it's intelligence, then let them.
You know, I do believe we're constantly in a state of war. I mean, not just our military personnel being deployed to hot zones all over the country, all over the world, but our first responders who are out there every single day defending local communities. I mean, look recently in New Orleans last year when 4 police officers went door to door in the early morning hours to evacuate houses and those residents to safety just moments before that van exploded. I mean, that's a heroic act to save. No civilians were hurt. It's people like them all across the country that are on alert to stop potential terrorists from causing harm to our citizens.
Well, that was September 11th. September 11th had every first responder was at ground zero on the next war. That was never declared.
Right.
And those casualties were casualties of war.
You know, I don't think our elected leaders really care about the welfare of the public. They only care about the National Guard soldiers protecting them around the Capitol building.
They don't care about them either. They're sleeping in the garage and using a porta potty while they go work out in their luxurious gym and take showers and go to cafeteria and go to their office with a beautiful fireplace and who knows how many rooms are in their office. I mean, the building is a monstrosity. You know what we should look into? How many miles of fence is around one building in Washington, D.C.?
You know, but we're going to wrap up our podcast here. So, Jack, you have any closing arguments?
I have one thing I'd like to say. Let me see if I got it here. Sorry, folks. Again, my internet's down, so I can't scroll. So, my brother had asked a question, and I thought it was pretty intriguing, and I'm going to use it for my conclusion of this program today. Every world power had fallen out of prominence after losing their morality. So, I want to ask you today a question, and please get back to me and with your answer. Is society replacing good and evil, good versus bad, with them versus us? And what I mean by that is, you could commit a certain crime, no matter how sinister it is. It's okay if you're us. Like, for an example, Cuomo. Between the nursing home crime and the sexual harassment crimes. Is it okay for him because he's one of us? But if you're one of them, you will be prosecuted. And worse than being prosecuted, you will be persecuted for that crime and persecuted for every time that crime was committed in history, whether you were alive or not, if it was a one-time deal, a lapse of judgment, you made a mistake, but you will be persecuted for the rest of your life for doing that crime. If you don't believe that we're losing our morality and it's being purged from our government, I was watching C-SPAN and there was a representative, I forget where he's from, and he was praising the Word of God. Immediately after he was done speaking, Representative Nadler got up to speak. And the first thing he said was, there is no room in this chamber for the Word of God. Let that sink in for a minute. So, come on, New York. Is there no way in the borough of Manhattan that you can find a better representative than Nadler? This man doesn't want to speak about God's morality because he knows he has none.
Yeah, we talked about socialism and Saul Alinsky, and part of that is removing religion from the government. So again, think about that. But we have an important job ahead of us, Jack. We have to let people know that we're all in this together. Individually, we won't be heard. But together, if we stand united, we will be heard. And we will be noticed. I mean, these issues we're talking about don't just affect one area of this country or one specific group. They're issues as a whole. And when we come together to unite as one, we can and will make positive change. And Jack and I, we're going to be the ones to be heard. I mean, we're career law enforcement guys with a passion to do something bigger than us. This is it, Jack. The time is now. But we need everyone's help and support. We need to get others involved. Join our grassroots effort, and together we will stand united. See you next week at the Tavern.